Bet you she'll pop in. So at the moment, we'll wait for her, but we'll begin. I'm really happy everyone's here. I see, we get 46 attendees here. It's an honor to be able to host something like this and be able to have people like David, Nanci, Lynette able to be here with the times at hand. I understand everyone kind of is at their own ballgame, but one of the pros to the virtual thing is we can do these situations. So I'm really happy we can make this happen, and we'll take it from here. I was supposed to announce and welcome Julie, kind of give a little bio, but she pops in, it'll come back to me. So I'm going to pass it over to America, and she'll announce her panelist, and we'll go from there. All right.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Hello, everyone. My name is America Mason, and I'm the chapter vice president of the National Society of Minorities in Hospitality. I am currently studying hotel and lodging management, and tonight it's such a pleasure to be one of the moderators for this event. We're super excited. Well, it is my pleasure to introduce the first panelist this evening, Nanci Haley. As Corporate Director of Revenue Management for White Lodging, Nanci Haley has more than 35 years of hospitality service under her belt. Having graduated from Johnson & Wales University in 1989 with her Bachelor of Science in Hospitality Management and then her MBA in International Business in 1991, she has worked as general manager for several brands, including Hilton Hotel and Wyndham, before moving to revenue generation. Currently, Ms. Haley works overseeing around 100 hotels in different brands, such as Marriott, Hilton, and Hyatt. She works with the brands, the ownership groups, and her own team to develop new ideas and strategies to increase RevPAR and the overall hotel revenue. Nanci Haley quotes Oprah Winfrey to offer our current students advice, saying, "Don't worry about being successful, but work toward being significant, and success will naturally follow." What great words to live by, for sure. We're delighted to welcome Nanci Haley to our summit this evening. Thank you, Nanci, for joining us. I would like to now invite Ashley Shockey to introduce our next panelist.
Hi, everyone. I am Ashley Shockey. I am the chapter president of Hospitality Finance and Technology Professionals. I am actually a current alumni of Johnson & Wales. I got my bachelor's in travel, tourism, and hospitality management. I'm currently going for my master's with a focus in hospitality. It's my pleasure to be one of the moderators for tonight. My first panelist that I'm going to introduce is Lynette. She graduated in 2013 with her bachelor's in accounting with a concentration in hospitality. She is working with Blum Shapiro. She's the secretary for the Hospitality Finance and Technology Professionals New England chapter. And during her time here at Johnson & Wales, she was the student assistant in the budgeting office and then led the Latin and ballroom dancing club on campus for 3 years. Thank you, Lynette, for joining us tonight. And then the second panelist is David Salcfas. He graduated in 1988 with his bachelor's in food service management and in 1986 with his associates in culinary. He is currently the general manager at the Algwin Hotel Times Square Autograph Collection. He has worked with Marriott for a very long time, as he did mention before. And he has worked at other properties as well as the New York Marriott Marquis, the Ritz-Carlton, New York Central Park. Thank you, David, for joining us this evening. So my first question for all of you to answer is, tell us a little bit about yourselves and how the pandemic has modified your job description and how are you moving forward. Lynette, you will go first.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for having me today. It's always a pleasure to come back to Johnson & Wales and participate. I'm very proud of the JWU Hotel Summit. Thank you for hosting us today. A little bit about me. I'm originally from Connecticut, went to school at Johnson & Wales, Rhode Island, and then Rhode Island became home. I graduated, as Ashley said, with a major in accounting, concentration in hospitality, and I'm still fortunate enough to be working in both of those industries. So I work at Bloom Shapiro. Prior to Bloom Shapiro, I actually worked at the Omni Providence downtown. That was my first real experience in the hospitality industry. I worked at the front desk for about a year and a half, and then I moved up to the accounting office. I did AR, a little bit of AP, and then income audit. So that was a very eye-opening experience for me. From there, I went to Bloom Shapiro. I'm now there for 6 years, and I focus mostly on financial statement audits for major hotel groups in Rhode Island. I also do internal audits. So I assess the effectiveness of internal controls, policy, and procedures at hotels. I'm that face every controller likes to see once a year. And I also now have taken on a consulting role with a small boutique hotel in Newport, consulting on bookkeeping. So I feel very fortunate, even during the pandemic, that I've been able to maintain my work-life balance. We've gone fully remote here at Bloom Shapiro. Luckily, a lot of things are electronic. We had no really need to be out at the client's office, but during our financial audit season and tax season, it was really difficult to be working with hotels when we were doing business as normal, but all the hotels were making harsh decisions on, related cost and payroll. So it was very eye-opening and made me feel very grateful for this opportunity to still continue to work and even serve within the hospitality industry. With my role in internal audit, that no longer exists. I will no longer be participating in auditing the controls, as most of our hotels in our hotel group have been shut down. Fortunately, the small boutique hotel that I work for in Newport, they were shut down between April to May, but they have a whole new team in. So I've been busy training them on bookkeeping and revenue reporting, especially during the summer months where they really got busy since their location's right on the marina. And fortunately, a part of Bloom and what I'm really grateful for, working in an advisory practice as well as an accounting practice, we really shifted our concentration on helping our needs of our clients. And one of those is helping on PPP loans, audits, and making sure they have all the information needed so they can get those loan forgiven. So we've been working with a lot of restaurants within the Rhode Island region, as well as different hotels and industries in Rhode Island. So that's a recap of kind of about myself and how I've been managing throughout the pandemic.
Thank you, Lynette. Nanci, if you wouldn't mind, please sharing some information about you.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm very proud of my Johnson & Wales background, and it's always nice to come back and share with the future generation of the hospitality industry. I cherished my time at JWU. I was a teaching assistant and fellow there, and then stayed on as one of the first management development trainees in the MBA program, and got my MBA and my master's there in the international business course. So that was quite an experience. And then I stayed and kind of worked my way up in the rooms section of hotels. I was in front office and rooms director and transferred to many different places throughout the country. I'm currently living in my seventh state as I've transferred throughout the world, or the country, I guess, traveling from hotel to hotel. After 10 years of being a general manager, however, I got a little tired of doing what I felt was the same thing all the time. And I was one of those crazy people who actually got excited at budget time. This might have been Professor Wahl's influence on me when I worked with him in an accounting office at one time. But I really enjoyed balancing numbers. I loved numbers. I loved making it all work. And I stepped back and I said, what really excites me about this industry? What do I love doing every day? And I loved the game of making more revenue, figuring out how to do it, and what kind of strategies we go about finding out making more. And so I took a little turn of a chapter and went away from operations and went into revenue strategy. And that's a wonderful thing about this industry, is there's so many different avenues you can take within it. A lot of different turns, a lot of different ways you can go and still be within the hospitality field. So that's how I ended up in this step of where I am today. This pandemic has been interesting. We all knew, anyone that's been around for a while knew that we were due for something. We go through cycles within our industry. David will tell you. We were overdue, actually. We were a couple years overdue, because it usually happens about every 10 years, where we hit a high, and then we sort of have an adjustment because we're overbuilt. And we were waiting for it. We were waiting for some sort of a small recession or an adjustment to happen. This was a little bit larger than what we expected, I think we can all say. We'll come out of it the other side, but we've had to adjust in a big way, and we've had to make some changes. In my world, I'm doing 3 jobs now. I think a lot of people can probably say that. Anybody out in the field's probably doing 3 jobs right now or more. And it's what we do. We just pick it up. We just get up every day and we do it. And it's okay, because tomorrow's another day. And we figure out a way to go, and we pivot, and we find new ways of doing things, and we get more efficient. And it's fine. We'll figure it out. We're getting easy. It's getting easier. It's getting better. And we're finding new ways to overcome. We know that there will be an end to this, and we will come out the other side stronger. But right now, we're just trying to get through the next couple of months and pull it all together as a team. And it makes the team stronger. And that's how we're handling it.
Thank you, Nancy. And then David, if you wouldn't much mind sharing your experience during this.
Sure. As others have said, it's a pleasure to be here. And, you know, my story with going to Johnson Wales has changed my life, truthfully, because I was the worst student in high school. So I was the last one to arrive and the first one to leave. And I think that kind of hurt me later in life, because when I started working, I was the first one to arrive and the last one to leave. It's just kind of how it all worked out. So maybe if I paid attention more, I would have been more of a doctor or a lawyer. But I love this business. Going to Johnson Wales was a hands-on type of environment that gave you skill set that probably no other school would do for you. And what you put into it, what you got out of it. And, you know, I took it for all it was worth. As Nancy said, I too was a teaching assistant fellowship my 3rd and 4th year. My lifelong friends, there's 2 of them. James Griffin, who's a professor there at the college. He's my roommate from college. We're still best friends to this day. So it's, you know, those lifelong relationships that you get from Johnson Wales will absolutely be there. You know, my 31-year career with Marriott has gone across 15 hotels, 5 different brands, and probably 21 different positions, all pretty much within the Northeast. I did a stint up in Boston, Newton for 3 years. So I lived in Watertown. I loved living in Boston. That's when I was single. And then when I came back, I'm from New Jersey. I moved back to and started working at the Newark Airport Marriott. And then I ended up into New York, where I was at the Marquis for the first time and catering sales. And that really was a great experience for me. And that was my first entrance into the New York City market. And then that got in my blood, and I've been there pretty much ever since. And I've worked in some pretty diverse hotels. One of the things that I've really specialized in along the way, good, bad, or indifferent, is working in a third-party union environment. These are a lot of things that you don't learn in the classroom, but when you're ready, you let me know. I can tell you some stories. I don't know how much I could share on the call here today. Some of the stuff you might turn and run, but it's real, and it's not as bad as what people say it is. It really is just a great environment to be in, because you really are working with professionals. There are a few knuckleheads out there, but for the most part, we work with some real professionals. And I mean that not just from a leadership standpoint, but for all the hourly employees that are out there in the industry there. And they've suffered a lot during this. Many of the managers are still working. Many have been laid off, but there's more employees. 80% of the workforce in New York, for example, is out of work right now. They've negotiated a pretty good deal where they've been receiving severance to offset their unemployment. This is probably unlike any other in the country. New York, what they've done themselves. If you have questions, I can answer more of that for you after. But, as a general manager with Marriott, I focus on three things, and that's associate engagement, guest satisfaction, and financial success. Since COVID, we've had to make some hard decisions to temporarily close many hotels in the beginning stages in March and April. I was also the general manager for the East Side Marriott of 49th and Lexington. That was a hardcore union hotel. It was probably one of the deepest rooted hotels in the union in the city. It used to be what they called the Holleran House, which the founding father of the union, a guy by the name of Vito Pitta, and the owner, Biff Holleran, were attached at the hip. So every union practice you can imagine originated in that hotel. And when I was there as general manager, the same employees were there for 40 years were the same employees that were there when it was the Holleran House.
Wow.
So you can get an idea of the dynamic of that operation. But the great people, and I think it taught me so much. It taught me to be a better leader. But we've had those people have all been laid off and severed, and it's been really sad. But in order for the hotel to save costs due to no revenue, we've had to make those changes because it was what we need to do. And what all hotels are doing now, whether you're open or closed, is you're either executing or preparing for a reopening with a new commitment to clean protocol in one shape, form, or another, and staying in close contact with our customers, staying in contact with the employees, with the ownership groups, is what we need to do and what we're doing so that we can make sure that we're here well into the future.
Thank you all for sharing a little bit about yourselves and your job descriptions and how COVID has definitely impacted you all. At this time, I would like to invite any of our attendees in the audience today to go into the Q&A box and type in your questions that you will have for our panelists. And then my next question is actually going to come back to you, David. During this very stressful time for you and your employees, how are you encouraging them to, stay positive during this uncertain time?
Well, one thing that I do is, I keep in touch. I stay in contact via text, via email, via the phone, whatever it might be. And so I keep them updated as to what's going on. The current hotel that I'm at, the Algonquin, on 44th and 6th, we're fortunate. We've got a great ownership group that pre-COVID was already had an escrow fund and money set aside to do a major renovation of the lobby and move one of the probably iconic restaurants in the city called the Blue Bar, where it was also what they called a round table, where people like Dorothy Parker, famous authors, have stayed, and they used to meet every week. This is the hotel that's got the famous cat. I don't know if you've ever heard of Hamlet or Matilda. If it's a boy, it's Hamlet, but this is the hotel that has the cat. And funny story, when I started at this hotel, they, one of the job eliminations I had to do was to eliminate the executive assistant because there was no work for her. She's the legal guardian of the cat. So as we were going through this process, she said, well, who's going to take the cat? And I said, well, you know, you could keep it if you'd like because of what's going on. She goes, no, that cat belongs to the hotel, even though I'm the legal guardian. So if you ever want to rent the cat from me, I'm the legal guardian of the cat. So I had to adopt the cat. So after 31 years, I never thought that that would be my claim to fame, is that, and that hotel gets more press than probably any hotel in New York City. So it's kind of interesting. But I tell them to keep the faith. You know, I tell them don't take a negative approach. It's nobody's fault is what happened. All we can do is, you know, stay resilient, and especially in the face of adversity here. The industry is going to bounce back. And with our renovation, with the industry, people will be pent up. There will be pent up demand at some point. Just don't know when, because there's really no sustainable occupancy because the business travel is literally dried up. So we're trying things locally in the market. But the thing that I'm doing is staying connected, promoting the renovation, making sure that I share pictures with them, progress, because people, any hotel, it's a living, breathing place. And it's not the building that makes it special, it's the people inside of it. And my role as general manager is to make sure that I recognize that and I listen to what they're saying, even when they're not there. And the other thing that I'm doing is I'm fixing up many of the things in the heart of the house. You know, part of the arrangement that we had to do with the union, because we have a renovation, is I have to maintain all of my engineering staff that have to stay on property working. So I've got a full engineering staff working where I'm doing all kinds of projects. They thought they were going to just kind of casually breeze through this. They've never been so busy painting, fixing, refurbishing things like they've never thought they would. And I'm a fresh set of eyes in the building. And I've got no customers to really deal with. So they can't wait for me to go home in the afternoon. But we're getting things done. And I think that's what the positive thing that I'm sharing with my staff to make sure that they know what's coming on the horizon.
Okay, Robbie, I do see that Julie joined if you want to.
Oh, really? Julie, how's it going?
Hi, how are you? I'm so sorry.
You're fine, you're fine. So everyone, a little late edition here. She's definitely very busy, and you'll probably hear why in a minute when I start introducing her. But I'm the president of the Hospitality Leadership Association. The ladies here, Ashley and America, they were saying what club they were in, and most of my club members are here today, so much appreciated, guys. But this is Julie Coker. She graduated from Johnson & Wales with a Bachelor's of Science in Hospitality Studies, Hospitality Management. She started her career with Hyatt, where she got a corporate management trainee position at the Hyatt Regency in Columbus. And we'll ask her a little bit about herself after, but her career was 21 years with Hyatt, which is very interesting. And after Hyatt, she went over to Philadelphia to run their Convention and Tourism Bureau, which is very interesting. And I'll end it here, but she's very busy today because right now she's the head of the San Diego Convention and Visitors Tourism Bureau, Tourism Authority in California. So it's up to you, Ashley, how you want to go about it, but should we ask Julie if she wants to say a little bio about herself?
Or would you like to add anything besides Julie?
Yeah, Julie, if you want to add to what I said, please.
Sure, thanks so much. And I apologize, everyone. Actually, you're right. It is a busy time for our industry right now. And California, unfortunately, is the only state that is not allowing hotel meetings to be held due to COVID-19. All other states in the United States do have some sort of capacity, but meetings are able to be held. And so just 5 minutes ago, having a conversation with the mayor and the county, to talk about how we can reopen meetings in San Diego safely. And so it took a little bit longer than I thought it was, but certainly as you guys can imagine, that certainly is a priority here. But just thrilled to be with you and to talk about our industry and where we are. And again, my apologies for being late. Thanks so much.
No worries,
Thank you.
Julie. So this is actually going to be kind of pointed towards you, Julie, and as well, Nancy. So it's going to be similar to David's. During this very stressful time for you and the employees that you do work with, how are you guys encouraging team members on during this uncertain time? Nancy, would you like to go first?
Sure. Hi, Julie. Miss you. Julie and I are old partners in crime. So from back in the JWU days. So our team, it's interesting for our team because most of my team members, as we are corporate employees, are remote to begin with. So we don't see each other. And because our corporate office has been closed down, it became even more remote than normal. So keeping in contact with people, as you all know, has become harder and harder. And during a very, very stressful time. So we have to maintain a very good communication with our team members to keep it going. We have a weekly direct report call with our team. We still have about 15 people in our revenue management team, which is about half of where we started. And one of the biggest things that we do is we try to make sure that on our weekly call, we share our wins. Wins are hard to come by these days, but we take every small one as they come. And, you know, sometimes it's something as little as the National Guard walked in the door yesterday and we booked 75 rooms for the next week. And that changes your world. And Julie, it'll happen. You know it'll happen. It's gonna, but those type of things make or break a team spirit. And you have to share it with everyone because it keeps everybody going from day to day. Those type of things keep the team moving forward. And everyone knows that if one win comes, another one's following. And it keeps everyone looking towards what can happen next and know that there's something else coming down the pipe. So you have to keep that going to keep spirits up. It will get better. It does get better. And there's always somebody working behind the scenes, like a Julie Coker, like everyone in the office. There's somebody working behind the scenes to try and get the rest of it up and running somewhere.
Yeah, thank you, Nancy. If you would like to share your insights, Julie.
Sure. So COVID obviously hit the hospitality industry immediately. So I still remember March 17th, sending the staff home in Philadelphia with laptops and other equipment. And honestly hoping that we were probably going to be back in the office by the end of March. The week before, I had done a press trip with New York and Company, and we were promoting what would have been an exhibit for the Philadelphia Museum of Art and the Whitney to open in October. So we did kind of this press junket, and literally it was the week before, and it was March 2nd. You know, we did the press conference in Paris, and then we had a reception, and then after that evening, we were at the hotel, and Fred Dixon, who's the president of New York and Company, got a call that New York had confirmed their very first case. And that was literally March 2nd. And then we all flew back the next day, them to New York and us to Philadelphia, to what obviously has changed our world since. And so when my initial responsibility when we first went home was just to make sure that everyone was okay, you know, and that they were safe and sound, because you're not only dealing with your employees, but you're dealing with their surroundings and you're dealing with their families. So some unfortunately, their spouses or partners immediately were laid off. And so now you're talking about a one household income. Some didn't have internet that was fast enough for them to be able to work efficiently from home. Also, remember, schools closed at the same time, definitely in Philadelphia. So now you have young children that need to get on Zoom or distance learning or whatever that is. And you've got one computer, and how does that work? And it's in one house. And some don't have space to spread out, so they're all either in the kitchen or the living room together or bedrooms and so forth. And so there was a lot of frustration and angst that you needed to provide leadership to, but then also too, we didn't know what was happening. We immediately shut down. There was literally no revenue that was coming in. Hotel rooms were not occupied. We were not collecting hotel tax. And for those on the call, most destination marketing organizations like myself, convention and visitors bureaus, were funded by hotel tax. Well, no guests, no rates, no money, no tax income that's coming in. And so we had to make some, very quick decisions, because just like your own checkbooks, if you have no revenue coming in, then you can't spend. And so what does that look like? So now you have, in Philadelphia at the time, I had 73 employees wondering, will I still have a job? And what does that look like? And then, feverishly trying to understand unemployment laws. And do you put people on furlough? Do you lay them off? Do you permanently, eliminate positions? And then you have a board of directors that you're trying to provide direction to. And you're also just trying to advocate to find out, so what does that mean we're shut down? Does that mean that no one can stay in hotels? No one can go in restaurants? Obviously, cultural attractions. And remember, this is the first time for, I'm going to say everyone on this call, that we've been through this. This is not 9/11. This is not the Afghan war in 92. And this is not the credit crisis in 2008. This is a pandemic that we don't know anything about. And we're all shut down at one time, not just one city, but everyone. Meetings come to a screeching halt. And certainly Nanci knows, in terms of revenue, just cancellation after cancellation. You're just washing books off of, washing numbers off the books. And so one of my board members said to me, it's like catching falling knives, because it's just happening. And so then, we kind of settled into a routine to make sure that everyone had the technology that they needed, and they could be efficient at home, and that there was work for them to do, and that they were safe, because you also had some employees who, maybe they were locked down and they were hand washing and wearing masks, but their partner wasn't. And so now you might have some that might have been exposed to COVID. So you had to get all those things in place. And I would say it probably settled down after 30 to 45 days, and folks got into a norm. And that's when your wellness checks start, checking in, because we had a lot of employees who lived by themselves. And now the walls are closing a little bit, because I'm not going outside even socially. I can only go to maybe the grocery store. I don't know if my family is safe. So now you've got to kind of get them on camera like this and have conversation. How you doing? You okay? You showering? And I mean that, like, you had to make sure that people were okay, and that it wasn't too overwhelming for them, plus also run the business. And then when I came out to San Diego in June, obviously they had been at home for 4 months. And then, so when I got here, we did start seeing things start opening up in room, dining outside you could do here, because obviously San Diego has a lot of outdoor space. Hotels opened up for leisure guests. People were outside. They could be on the beach here. They couldn't gather, but they could be on the beach. So a little bit of normalcy was happening in San Diego. So in San Diego, I now had to make sure that my staff here, although I didn't know them and I couldn't meet them in person like I normally would, but we too had to make some financial decisions here. And you have people who are sitting on the other side of a Zoom wondering, is she going to cut my job because she doesn't know me? And so you've got to put them at ease. And so the thing I would say, two things about communication from a leader. One, it should be transparent. And I always tell my people, if I know at 8 o'clock, I'm going to tell you at 8:05, because I think the more information I give you and the more transparent I am, the more comfortable you are, and the more likelihood you are not going to seek information from others that are probably going to give you the wrong information. And then the other is, I am going to be genuine. I am a person just like you, and I have family members that are, losing their jobs, and I have an elderly parent who's 85, and I'm concerned about her welfare. So what you're going through, even though I might be the president of the organization, I'm still a human first, and I'm figuring it out with you. And what you should know is that I'm always going to be honest, and I'm going to keep it real, and I'm going to be genuine 100%, which is what I would hope that you would be as well. And through this process, let's give one another the benefit of the doubt.
Thank you, Julie. So then my next question will be for you, Lynette. As we enter the fourth quarter, how are budgeting strategies going for 2021?
Yeah, certainly. This is interesting. Not only am I the youngest of the alumni here, I also kind of in a different position. I see things. I'm still heavily involved in the hospitality industry, but kind of from an outsider's perspective. So I did get to experience a lot of the angst that our clients were going through, but also with that, taking a big picture view, looking forward to the years to come, especially during this time in budget season. I participated in a lot of economic outlook events, which helps hotels not only, foresee what's going to happen within the next year. Specifically, I attended the CBRE Hotel Advisory economic outlook just recently, and they were very honest and very raw about what's to come, and they provided a lot of interesting details in regards to the impact of cost related to what's going to happen kind of in what they call the immediate ramp up phase of COVID and then post-COVID. So within the next year, they made some interesting points of cost related specifically to the variable cost and sales and marketing. Within a full service hotel, within that immediate phase ramp up, cost can go up to about 30% in sales and marketing. And then it's going to stay increased about 10% after they call it the midterm post-COVID era. So this is full service hotels who have a lot to offer, who are still strongly trying to advertise and increase their public relations to make sure they're getting their hotel back to the occupancy that they were once before. Another interesting change that you can see within the next year that CBRE pointed out is that food and beverage as well, costs related to cleaning and getting into line with all these requirements for safety and health will increase about 20% during this ramp up phase, immediate phase, but will kind of level back out post-COVID. So they're seeing some major spikes in this intermediate phase for costs related to getting your hotel back up and running, health and safety. They have what they call the baseline scenario. If there were to be a vaccine that comes out widespread late 2021, and there is additional stimulus help from the government, that they're forecasting to be significant gains in 21 and 22. However, it won't go back to normal levels until 2023, 2025. So they have projected what they call a recovery zone for limited service to be around 2023. With full service hotels, they're projecting hotels to come back to their normal occupancy, ADR, and RevPAR rates within 2025. And this is a combination of consumer confidence and just if there is a cure to the COVID crisis. Being here today, I'm also learning a lot already. This year actually marks my 10th year within the hospitality industry. So to Nancy's point that, every 10 years we see a shift, it's kind of interesting now to put it into perspective that I am seeing a shift live for my first time. And this is certainly uncharted territories for everybody, especially the hotels during this time of the year where budgets are due and revenues aren't coming in or aren't coming as they used to. A lot to consider moving in to the fourth quarter and into next year. But there is, you know, if the numbers say it, Nancy's experience, every 10 years, someone figures it out. There's hope out there. And I mean, I think with just time will tell when we get back to our normal levels. But if we continue working towards those and solving in creative in different ways within hotels, especially full service hotels, that restaurants can use to their advantage. Boutique Hotel in Newport that I helped consult with, their breadwinner this summer was their dining. So for them, if it wasn't for someone having the opportunity to dine outside, their budget season and their fourth quarter revenues would be a lot different year to date if it wasn't for opportunities for hotels to be flexible with other options they can provide, such as dining outside as it's applicable. So even though right now we're at the lowest of lows, there's certainly a comeback in the forecast and all the economic outlooks events that I've attended. It's maybe not near future, but certainly in the future where we can get back to our normal rates in a hotel.
Well, thank you, Lynette, and thank you all for sharing all of your. I would like to take the time that welcome.
Is that me? My Wi-Fi has seemed to cut here. Yeah. Can I be heard?
Robbie, you're okay. You go. Ashley
All right.
froze. So
Oh, I
Robbie,
got you. I got you. And thanks, Ashley. Thank you. And continue to put questions in, guys. You know, I see some. I was scrolling a little bit through the Q&A there. Some good ones so far. Thank you so much. My next question is for David. What do you believe is the overall attitude and the perception of the guests that have walked into the hotel, you know, since everything went down in March? And what are some innovative ways, you know, your property is delivering a unique guest experience?
Well, I'll go back to, I guess, in May, because I've been closed since May.
Okay, thank you.
But I can still answer the question. And then, so I closed, and then the other hotel, the Eastside Marriott, I closed that one in March. So, but one thing that we were trying to do is initially in New York was to take on all of the first responder business. So you try to take different segments to make up, and you do that with any type of, you know, Nanci will tell you this, is that if one segment falls apart, you go after airline business where you reduce your rates, and you go after some other tour and travel business to build some base just to keep you going, because all of the business travel literally dried up. So, you know, some of the things that we've done innovatively, though, in all of our properties, even though I'm in a closed state, is that, you know, the perception and the attitude, first of all, travelers are not ready to travel. You know, business travel in particular, until the virus is under control and people have confidence, whether there's a vaccine, even when the vaccine comes, I still think it's going to be tough for people to say, okay, I feel like I'm coming back. Plus, I think a lot of the guests and the business travelers are liking some of this virtual work from home, remote situation, because if the kids are not back in school on a full schedule, they kind of need to stay there. And I think Julie referenced that. That's pretty important, because people aren't able to leave work, you know, leave home because there's no childcare, because people aren't feeling comfortable to come do this. So the attitude is, until the virus is under control, truly under control, where people can go about their lives. I think the other thing is all of the travel restrictions, even though hotels are open, I mean, they're open and they're maybe doing anywhere between 4, if you get 10% occupancy, you had a good day. Where most hotels have traditionally, you know, especially in New York City, and I think most hotels in the peak this time of year, hotels are in 90 to 95% occupancy, you know, running average rates well over $260 and $300. Luxury hotels are at a $700 to $800 rate. We're just not seeing that, and nobody's going to pay it. And I think we're trying to put our best foot forward with trying to do pricing negotiations right now with some of our special corporate accounts going into 2021. And I mean, we're just trying to gauge the rate. Negotiations are kind of whatever the percentage is going to be off of what our corporate rate is going to be, which is probably going to be in the 150 range, and there'll be a percentage off of that. I mean, there's going to be low rates like we've never seen before in the hotels when people do decide to come back. That's my belief. And that's going to be the only way that we're going to be able to do what we do. And that's going to be a challenge, because to being able to operate with the low we're going to go from no revenue to low revenue, which means the ownership groups are still going to have a significant loss. And they're buckling down for that. And that's been a problem that we're trying to combat. But some have found, ways to work remote, still accomplish what they need to do. One of the other things we're trying to do is trying to come up with meeting packages that can be virtual. So they, save, Deloitte wants to do a meeting in New York, but they don't want to bring everybody in. Can your facility be set up in a clean protocol environment with the, obviously face masks, with all the hotel clean procedures, temperature checks, all of these things, plexiglass set up, and then they could do their meeting right there. So we've got some packages that we're creating in our hotel to do that. But the closure for the food and beverage options, because right now, even if you go into a restaurant, you can only have 25% capacity. Most hotel restaurants don't operate outside. Their restaurant is inside. And with the union laborers, particularly the freestanding restaurants, are getting away with this because they're non-union and they don't have those restrictions. But the hotel in New York, and I think wherever else they're at, they're going to have a challenge to make money in food and beverage. Food and beverage is going to be a big struggle. And it was already a struggle before COVID. So, just put it in perspective, the supply has gone up so much. We've gone from, over the past 20 years, let's just call it 20 years, and we've gone up 70% in the amount of hotels and restaurants in our market. It is so overpopulated that we've saturated the market so much that the spend can only, your wages have outgrown your revenue. And hotels have tried to find ways that they can optimize prior to COVID. Now with COVID, we want people not to really have that hand-to-hand touch interaction. So for room service is almost non-existent in almost every hotel anywhere. They've gone to these, fast delivery casual. They, with Marriott, we call it fresh bites. Other places have a pantry, where now we would knock on the door and we would hand it to them. Now we knock on the door and we run because they don't want to see you. And that's the strategy we've taken. We have a digital platform where we have an app where they can order their food online through the app live in the hotel, and it gets delivered to their room. The only reason that I don't think we have those robotic things in New York that kind of move through the hotels because of the union. I don't think that will ever pass the smell test unless you buy out and do an enhanced severance and buy out the staff. But it's the customers are the ones that are going to demand, us to respond in a different way. And having the safety protocols in place are going to be key. Mask wearing is required in all of our hotels for guests and for employees. We have sanitation stations like everywhere you turn. We have the postings on the floor, in the elevators, at the front desk, at the bar, wherever you have some sort of interaction of another person, there'll be plexiglass between you. Taking your seating and removing chairs so that people can be socially distant. But a lot of the hotels out there, they're small, and most of them are boutique style. You barely fit 3 people in an elevator. So now you can only have one person ride in the elevator. So it's going to cause other issues where they're kind of being asked to either take the stairs if they're only going 2 flights up. So these are some of the, I think, variables that we're going to run into in hotels that are open. It's not a great experience because there are no amenities. And that's part of the issue right now. And guests, you can stay open just to, instead of losing, let's just call it $10 million, you might lose $8 million. But the reality is, in this state, you're still going to lose. And that's part of the problem because the guests just don't feel comfortable traveling. And it's going to take a while. I think it's going to be well into 2021, into 22 or 23 before we really start seeing business travel come back. And I don't know if it's ever going to come back the way it was. That's my opinion.
Thanks, Dave. Very insightful. I'm going to go with Nanci here next. You're in the revenue management side of things. You have plenty of diverse diverse portfolio of brands and White Lodging over there. I was on the website, different states. You have New York, Kentucky, Indiana, Florida. I saw. Is one segment doing better than the others? Is there a distinctive sub-segment that you target because of the travel patterns during the pandemic?
Absolutely. We manage hotels from, select service type of hotels in suburban markets to 1,000 room JW Marriotts in urban environments that are large convention style hotels. And let's face it, the bigger they are, the harder they fell. Anything that is group reliant, there's no group. So they're the ones that are going to suffer the most. The ones that are completely in need of business travel and group, it doesn't exist. It is a fact, it is statistical fact that the further the hotel is from an inner city, the better they've done during COVID-19. The best market in the country was Knoxville, Tennessee. In that area up there, people wanted to go to the mountains. They wanted fresh air. So one of the major things that we've had to do during this, and probably the best and potentially most overused word in the last 6 months has been pivot. We've had to pivot our strategies and change the way that we've looked at selling, who we sell to, and who our customer base is in each of our hotels, and dramatically change the way we think about rate, break our thought about what our rate needs to be because we couldn't get it anymore. The customer was different. There were people traveling this summer, not a lot, but there were people traveling this summer, and they were buying on different channels. They weren't buying on our own websites. They were buying on online travel agencies such as Expedia.
The opaques, right?
Yeah, well, not some opaques, but not necessarily opaques. They were buying on Expedia Direct, Booking.com, and we had to really go out there and market directly through those channels, which we don't normally do. That's normally a parity issue for the brands, and we broke a lot of rules. And the brands kind of let us. They just said our handcuffs were off. We just had to play wherever we had to go and play this summer and go after whatever business we had to go after. And all of our hotels did it. And we just fought for whatever we had to fight for. And the hotels, most of our hotels were running about a 30% occupancy. That's pretty much where we would go. But when I say 30% occupancy, it was 10% occupancy Sunday through Thursday and 80% occupancy on the weekends. So it was people piling their families in a car and going. They didn't know where they were going. They would just book on their phone 24 hours out. So that's how short the booking window was. And if you weren't on a mobile app and you didn't have a sale on a mobile app, you weren't going to capture them. So it was about having the right rate in the right place and capturing that customer on the channel. And everybody was playing, and it was pretty much a race to the bottom from a rate perspective. And that's how you captured it. And it killed the properties, because when you go from 10% occupancy to 80% occupancy, all your business is happening at once and you don't really have the staffing levels to do it. It's hard. It's really hard out there in the field. So, you know, they're going from 0 to 50 really fast and then going back down again. So it was probably a pretty rough summer. And that's who's traveling right now. So it's going to be like that for quite a while. And what Lynette was talking about with CBRE, she's not too far off with what they were saying with their recommendations, because the reason it's going to take so long to come back, the corporate individual traveler might come back a little bit sooner. That really has more to do with liability for companies. They're not going to allow their people to travel until there is a vaccine. They just won't, from a liability perspective. It all comes down to group. Until group base gets back in there. And, you know, Julie can talk about citywides and how far out they book. She can talk about they book years in advance. So it takes a long time for them to get back on the books and start actualizing again. And to get that base back in there and get all of this to start coming back in and laying back into where our base needs to be to build it all back in. It just takes a while to get it all happening and get the train back on the tracks. So we're thinking the end of 24 into Q1 of 25 as well, from all the statistics that we've seen. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you. This one
Aren't
here.
you glad you invited us?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I know.
I said, there's 50 kids on the phone that are graduating. They're like, oh my God.
No, but think of all the upside.
Oh, I am.
Honesty is key. Honesty.
There's a lot of upside. Yeah.
We talked about transparency. There you go.
We're gonna go to Julie next here. You know, Julie, you know, what are like some strategies you are implementing with your team to support the local tourism industries in San Diego?
Sure. So, I mean, I'll be honest, you know, San Diego's very lucky. We have perfect weather, as you can see right over my shoulder. It's, you know, 4 o'clock here and it's 73 degrees and don't have on sleeves and haven't had them on, and I don't own an umbrella or rain boots. So San Diego is very fortunate. You know, we have miles and miles of great beaches. I'm literally at the Grand Hyatt Manchester right now, and we're going to do a media event tomorrow with elected officials and legislators to show them how we think we can reopen meetings and how we can hold them safely. But one of our key strategies is going to be that we can also put you outside. So almost all of our hotels here are fortunate to have outdoor space. And when you don't have to worry about weather, you don't have to have a backup alternative. So you literally can, you know, say we'll do lunches on the patio and we'll do, you know, receptions by the pool, and we can. So what we've done here, leisure hotels, stays for leisure guests open June 12th. And so we immediately, as Nanci said, you know, saw 80-90% occupancy Thursday through Sunday. You know, our traditional weekends are always extremely busy, especially that time of year. June, there was a lot of pent up demand, a lot of frustration of not being able to travel. So The hotels along the coastline did extremely well. Our downtown properties probably stayed closed rather until late July or August, because our 3 big properties are anywhere from 1,300 rooms to 1,600 rooms. And when you open them, as Nancy talked about, you can't go 50% to 30 and 80, and it's too much on staffing, and it'll impact service levels. So we had probably 60% of our inventory open in June, and then it continued to increase. And by the 4th of July, we had 87% of our inventory open. Again, remember our weather. That's not everyone's story. And we also have a lot of outdoor places. We've got Bell Park, we've got the zoo, we've got SeaWorld, where you can control your own experience. We've got miles and miles of beaches where you can take your beach chair and your family and kind of sit in your own little bubble. And so that has boded well for San Diego. We actually are running the highest occupancy and average rate and RevPAR out of any other city in California. To compare, San Francisco, for example, just opened up for leisure visitors 2 weeks ago. So when we opened up, we started with, well, I should say this, in March, San Diego started with, we'll keep San Diego warm for you. So we were saying to our customers, we empathize where you are. We know you can't travel right now, and we'll be here when you're ready. And I think that's extremely important, because you can't be tone deaf to what's happening and just slam a message out there like, come visit us no matter what. You've got to acknowledge where people are and take that into account. From there, when leisure opened, we then did Stay Diego, and it was a stay vacation. So we appealed to San Diegans first. Come stay in the city. You're not going to be able to travel like you were supposed to. A lot of Californians go to Hawaii and other places. You're not going to be able to do that. So just bring your family and stay here. You can distance learn from our rooms. As long as you have Wi-Fi, you can work in our hotels. And so we did Stay Diego. We did Dine Diego. Come eat in these restaurants. The profit margin is slim and they need to see you there. And by this point, we had put tables in the street so folks could dine outside. We also had Shop Diego. So these local shops that typically see convention attendees don't see them. So come spend some money in these shops. And of course, so Stay Diego, Shop Diego's, Dine Diego, just do local. From there, when we felt like it was safe, we then switched to Happiness is Calling You Back. So we were talking to Phoenix, we were talking to Tucson, and we were saying to them, Arizonans, come from Arizona, because now it's 120 degrees and that's just insane. So come on over to us. We're 73 degrees. We've got great weather and you can cool off and the family can come, and you're probably a 2 to 3 hour drive away depending where you are. We also spoke to LA. So we spoke to Southern California and said, Happiness is calling you back. You don't want to be, like Nancy said, in an urban city where everyone's concerned about COVID numbers. Come here and you can spend time outside. And we also spoke to those in Las Vegas because they have the same temperature issue, and that worked for us. And so then that stay became like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Sunday night started growing. After Labor Day, kids are back in school, whether they're distance learning or not, but now that Sunday through Wednesday has no group and it has no business traveler. And so now we've pivoted to yay for week yays. So we're saying as much fun as you have on the weekends, you can do it here in San Diego, Sunday through Wednesday. Why? Because hotel rates are less. Lines at attractions are less than they are on the weekends. The beaches aren't as crowded weekday as they are on the weekends. And think about this, you can bring your child to a hotel room and they can distance learn, let's say from 9 to 12, and then you can take them to Balboa Park and augment their learning, their e-learning. Or you could do it all at the zoo. You can take your laptop, you can have a hotspot, your kid can do their Zoom at the zoo, and then they can go over and see the animals. You as the parent probably need a cocktail by then because you're going crazy because you can't do their homework. But the beauty of it is that as we see right now, we're all working from different locations, and as long as you've got a laptop and Wi-Fi, you can work. And it's the same thing. So we're now promoting yay for week yays, trying to build up that occupancy Sunday through Wednesday. Again, we're a fortunate destination. Our hotels are running, last weekend they ran 80%, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But on the weekdays right now, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they're only about 20%, 15%. I'm in a hotel right now, and the Hyatt has 1,600 rooms and they have 52 rooms occupied. on this Wednesday night. It's devastating, right? They'll ramp Volley back up to about 1,100 rooms on, a Friday or Saturday, but right now it's pretty devastating. So, your marketing and communication message just kind of follows the evolution. And as soon as meetings reopen again and that business traveler is safe to travel, and I totally agree with liability insurance. No employer is going to send their worker out there to then be responsible for them getting COVID. So until that is handled, whether it's limited liability insurance that comes out of the federal government that limits the liability of the employer, or a vaccine that comes that more than 70% of the United States takes it, it's going to continue to be a struggle.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you. So we're going to transfer here to the last question. This is going to involve all the panelists. So we kind of went down the optimistic track for the summit talk here today. So just share your thoughts with the students, who are, watching, predict the future of the industry. I know it's extremely hard, but do your best. And of course, advice for students like, that are in the chat, myself, seniors, everyone. Yeah. Lynette, please.
Yeah, certainly. This is an interesting time to be a student, employee, worker in the hospitality industry. And it's funny listening to the tourism tactics that San Diego is taking on versus what's happening in Rhode Island, which we are the smallest state. Don't have a lot of beaches, but we do have a lot of sidewalks and a lot of parking lots. So I'm also a part of RIHA, the Rhode Island Hospitality Association, and they've been doing a lot to advocate and promote how the hospitality industry can thrive during this time. So I think one of the important things that I'm learning from RIHA and what they're doing is to be innovative. I think this time, as a student, capitalize on reading, as broad as that may seem, but reading literature relevant to your industry, reading and following blogs of key leaders in your industry. Learn from those individuals what they are struggling with, how they are handling certain situations, so you can have that background knowledge when you go out into the industry. For those that are a part of HFTP, there's newsletters. You can sign up for newsletters that you're interested in. That way you're in the know, you know what's happening in this industry. You can start thinking creatively and maybe coming up with different solutions. There's going to be new problems in this industry. We're going to need new solutions in the industry. So easier said than done, but I think reading and being involved in your industry specific literatures, you can follow on social media, but I've just recently, and I wish I'd done this earlier, taken interest in reading industry magazines. A few that I've been enjoying reading are Inc. And Fast Company, as well as HFTP. They come out with a magazine very often, which talks about the current struggles or the current initiatives and different strategies companies are taking to overcome the current situation. So I think being informed of what's currently happening now, being innovative, thinking outside the box, will be a great way to kind of step out into the work world now. The one thing I kind of will relate to is the NBA in the bubble. They thought of something outside of a bubble, creating their own little environment to thrive. I think that's the kind of innovative, different thinking that needs to happen. Even like Nanci was mentioning, getting out of your normal operations, your normal ways of doing things. I think industry leaders now and employers are looking for that kind of thought forward individual and process. So I think a good way to do that, getting yourself immersed, reading literature for the industry, and getting involved. This is one great way to do it as well.
Thank you. David, would you like to go or?
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, one of the things that we did, a lot of the hotels did out there, the Heart of Hope. I think there was this little social media craze on Instagram and Twitter and all these things that my kids teach me how to use, where they lit up a heart in the hotels. And I think San Diego had a couple of really cool ones that they did. if I'm remembering. I tried to do a couple at my hotels. I didn't really get the traction they got, but it wasn't about trying to get traction or get publicity. It was more about doing a hope for our staff. And the reason I did what I did in my hotels when I did those Hearts of Hope is we did those in conjunction with the closing. So when we closed the building, we told the staff, you know, we're closing. It's an emotional time, but we're going to come back. And this heart is going to stay lit, and you need to stay lit with it. And that's how we did it. And that message really resonated with them, that they cared and we were going to get through this together. And that was the glimmer of hope that we gave everybody. Now that's been months ago, and we still keep pushing that, you know, that initiative. But they're, you know, they've gone through a lot, the staff and the guests out there. They want to come back too. I can't tell you how many repeat guests that I have that call me and say, when are you going to open? I do want to come into New York, and, you know, I've had to turn people away. So the challenge is, if there's not sustainable business, you know, we have to manage it. And that's the reality. You know, we're not living in a fairy tale land here. We have to use our brains of how to do it. And, you know, you have to, so the people are not coming back to work. And that's been the biggest focus that I think a lot of the hoteliers have had to go through, is how to figure out how to mentor and still, you know, give their managers and their employees, like the employees know they're going to come back, but some of the managers may never come back. And that's been a challenge, because you might have, you know, your average hotel probably got about 20 to 25 managers in it. They're going to be lucky to come back. If they do open, and if they are open, they may be running with 6 to 10 managers. It's a quarter to a half of what was there. So they've had to rethink the way they do things as well. You know, perfect example, and I'll give her a little plug here, is there's a girl by the name of Isabella Abate. She's a graduate of Johnson & Wales maybe 3 or 4 years ago, that I met, and she worked for me at the East Side Marriott as a food and beverage manager. She was furloughed, and then she was eliminated, and then she didn't just sit back and say, okay, I'm going to cry, and what am I going to do, and how am I going to get a job? Because there's no jobs. So it's not like I'm going to get a job. There's no job to get. So she literally took lemons and made lemonade. She started a company called Simply Bella's, and she's down in the Philadelphia market, and she's making extracts that she's selling for drinks, because bars are open. She's selling it for food. She's got a web page. I mean, check it out. I mean, it's amazing what this young woman did. I mean, it's pretty impressive. You know, me personally, you know, I've had to go through, you know, some reduced work week. You know, I got 4 kids. I got 2 in college, 1 right behind, and you know, income has changed. So you've had to change the way you live, which is fine. You know, you make the moves and you do what you have to do, because we're resilient, and that's how you got to remain. But, you know, I tried to do a little freelance consulting myself, where, you know, I'm helping people all the time, and I'll always do that. And that's why I do these type of things with Johnson Wales, and I'll always do these type of things. But I did this myself. So, you know, I created a web page. I don't know what I'm doing. I went online. I picked up this company called Wix, and Wix helped me through it. So I created this company, IUYOUconsult.com. I'm going to try and make a go of it, as long as Marriott says it's okay. I'm waiting for the word on that. But the root of the story is one of the students, he's a senior there. His name is Matt Canningeiser. He's a senior at Johnson Wales. He went to high school with my son. He was home because he's taking classes virtually. So he came last night. He created a logo for me. He told me how to optimize the site, how to set up the drop-down menu boxes. And he showed me his webpage, because he's a graphic design and photography, that's what he specialized in. And that's what he's trying to get an internship. So if you can help him, please help him there. But I mean, I reached out to an alumni that's in my own backyard. This is the type of thing that we need to do for each other. And I think as students that are coming out of this and you're going for your degree, if you can continue your education, it's probably a never better time to continue your education because the job market is very, very scarce. I'm not gonna, paint the picture of, listen, you're gonna, the Voyager programs, some of the management training programs, we're trying to figure out how we're gonna bring those things back because we do need them. The only thing that saved a lot of those is that the class 2 visas, people haven't been able to, big companies and in certain markets haven't been able to get where they bring a lot of international students over. So they've opened those packages up, but the students have got to be flexible. The more flexible you are with where you could go in terms of location, then the broader the opportunities. But if you say, I can only work in New York, or I can only work in Boston, or I can only work in Texas, you're going to close a lot of doors for yourself. But if you can open it up and say, I'm open to go anywhere, your opportunities are going to be there. When my hotel was closing on the east side back in the summer, it closed permanently. It left the portfolio. It's no longer a Marriott hotel. I was applying for jobs in San Antonio, Texas. I was going to be one of those guys that leave on Sunday night and come back, Friday morning, unless it was fun and I decided to stay for the weekend. But, I was looking at options because I didn't know what was going to happen. And then I was blessed and fortunate for the Algonquin to open with Marriott. And I was able to stay in the city that I love. And I believe that the city's going to come back. I believe we got the right firepower behind us. I'm happy to hear Fred Dixon's name. I'm a huge fan and a good friend of his. So, he's doing great things. And he's, that CVB is going after the local market. They're finding ways with this all-in recovery, initiative to go into the neighborhoods in our 5 boroughs. We've got some incredible places that are open and you can operate your business. But the biggest challenge that, one of my responsibilities in the city is I'm also on the Hotel Association of New York City Board of Directors, and I'm the chairperson for the New York Business Council. And the restrictions are killing us. The restrictions by the local government are not helping. We have protocols in place. We're doing the right things. Let us manage our business. And that's what I've been trying to preach through these organizations, and they're doing it on our behalf. But I think the health and safety has got a lot of people scared, and nobody's willing to take that chance. And we can say it, we can write letters, we can fill out surveys, and you got to do all that stuff. But you got to be willing to go, and you got to be willing, and you got to be smarter about it. So when I'm telling people travel, please travel, go somewhere, wear your mask, do what they tell you, but travel. And that's the message. And if it's a restriction that you have to quarantine, you got to make that choice, what you're going to do. But there's some regulations out there that you have to follow. But I think we will pull through this. There's no doubt about it. But we've got to be optimistic. And I think the resilience is the key word that I think everybody's got to, power through it and make their own decisions.
Thank you. So we're running a little, we're nearing, the 7:30 mark. So, we of course wanted to get Nanci and Julie's view here, but I think what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the Q&A, and I'm going to have America say a question that a student has asked, and then maybe we'll go to Julie and then Nanci, and just kind of they'll answer the question as like their advice per se on the question. And then we'll try to get David involved, and of course, Lynette up top. So America, if you want to take over and pull a question to you that looks really good for Julie per se, and then for Nanci.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Robert. And to all the panelists so far, thanks so much for sharing your insights. One of the first questions that came up was, what is the hardest decision that you have had to make during COVID-19? And I'm going to kind of combine that with another, that what experiences kind of in the past helped you to be able to make those decisions? If Julie or Nanci wants to jump in first and give me some advice.
Sure. I'll go and I'll say quickly, honestly, the hardest decision for me was San Diego. I had interviewed for the position in December of last year. I accepted the position in January. I was to be here March 15th. And then of course, COVID hit. And so honestly, I was torn between leaving Philadelphia and helping the staff through what I knew was going to be a very difficult period. And so I ended up extending my time in Philadelphia to June to help them as much as I possibly could. But it was tough. It was tough to leave Philadelphia after being in that city with Hyatt for 3 years and then at the Bureau for 9.5. And I'm saying goodbye to team members like this. I didn't get to see them back in the office again. I didn't get to thank them for, all the hard work. So that was a really tough decision. The other tough decision is, and I think that's any leader on this call would say, is to make a decision of who stays and who goes. That we all had to let go very qualified, passionate workers. And that's never good. And sometimes when these things happen, it does give you the opportunity to shed some fat, if you will, but not this. You lost folks who were talented and had been in our industry for years and were committed because you just didn't have, the financial wherewithal. So here and San Diego and in Philadelphia, I think that was the toughest decision for me. Probably what prepared me the most for this was, I would go back to, 9/11. And when we had to make some very difficult decisions, I was at a Hyatt in Chicago and we, had to trim our staff a little bit. And then also too, in Columbus, Ohio, I was there in 91 and it was the whole survive to 95 because we were going through one of our cyclical, and it was a downturn in the economy. And of course we saw it again in 2008. So I guess that would also be my advice. While we haven't seen a pandemic before, we have seen difficult times. We've seen the Afghan war and we've seen 9/11. I mean, who would think think about this. It's been 19 years that we've taken our shoes off in the airport. Who would have thought 19 years ago, we would have taken our shoes off in the airport or carried only 3 ounces of liquid, but we have, and we do, and we're okay with it. And we take off our shoes and we get through it and it's fine, right? And so we will get on the other side of this. And hopefully we will be stronger because of it. And I totally agree, Lynette. We've got to be innovative and creative and call on resources and strength that we've never had to use before. But the reality is the spirit of travel is alive and well. And there's no way that folks will not want to continue to travel and also meet and greet. This is all well and good, this whole Zoom, go to meetings, whatever. We do what we have to do. But it's not the same as meeting someone face to face, shaking their hands, having a conversation, looking them eye to eye and being able to close business. So guys, hang in there. Better days are ahead and we're going to get through this and we're going to be stronger and better when we come out of it.
Agree.
Wonderful. Go ahead.
I have to completely agree with Julie. And again, the letting go of people who are the hospitality business. People are the hospitality business, not the buildings. It's the people, and we had to let go so many, and we've done it before. We've gone through this before, and we'll go through it again because, as I said at the beginning, we go through it. These are cycles, but. We've made this sound horrific, I think, with some of the statistics that we've used, and it probably has scared you guys to death. But in talking about, it's going to be 2024. But what I need to drive home is when I say we'll be back to 2019 levels in 2024. 2019 was a record-breaking year. We have never had occupancy and rate levels ever that we had in 2019. So when we're measuring 2024 against 2019, remember it was the high. So in between, we're still going to have some good. We're still going to have good in between 2021 and 2024. We got a ways to go. We're climbing upward. There's only ways to go up. So we're going to go there. There's going to be a lot of pent up travel demand, and this Zoom stuff, wouldn't we all rather be doing this in person? I would.
Wonderful. I love that optimism. Thank you, Nancy. Due to time constraints, we're gonna just do one last question, go over a few minutes. And the last question that I have is aimed towards revenue. So I'm gonna aim this towards Lynette. What hotel market segment do you think is gonna recover the quickest in terms of revenue? What do you see happening?
Yeah, and I think based on what I've been hearing and getting information from our advisors as well, and what I've heard on this call today, I do believe the limited service hotels and the low price tier hotels will see the quickest comeback. And for the reasons also mentioned, full service hotels have a lot of amenities to offer. They have food and beverage, they rely on groups, as Nancy was mentioning, but these limited service hotels are offering a space for you to rest your head. So maybe for a quick trip, to travel here and there, I think they'll see the quickest rebound during this time. And for, I guess, quick reference, in the Boston market, they're anticipating, by 2023, lower price tier markets will be back to their 2019 levels in ADR, occupancy, and RevPAR. Again, with it slowly increasing for the full service hotels who have that food and group revenue, coming closer to their 2019 in 2024, 2025. But to Nancy's point, it's an upward trend. It's a slow upward trend, but it's going up there. And I feel like it's going to be here sooner than we know it. People are having that itch to travel. They see places, get out of their house, I'm sure. So the sooner the consumer confidence is in the air, the sooner I think everyone starts seeing an increase in their normal status.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I would just like to conclude this event by once again thanking each of the members of our panel, and thank you to all the attendees that joined us as well. The information and the insight that we've gained from the panelists today is greatly, greatly appreciated. And I know that our students and even me personally are benefiting from you taking your time out of your busy schedule. So thank you. I would like to ask the panelists to stick around just for a moment, but to everyone else, have a great night, stay safe, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. All right.
Bye, everyone.
Quickly, while everyone else is, all the attendees are logging off, we were just wondering if everyone is okay to take a picture so that we can capture this, document it, and probably use it as promotional. Is that okay with everyone? Okay, I think I'm not tech savvy, but I think the best way to do this is if you screenshot instead of like taking a picture. So we're gonna try this. Bear with me a moment. Everyone give me your best smile and let's try this. I'm waiting for Julie, there we go. Getting the good weather in there. Alrighty, 1, 2, 3. Oh, wonderful, awesome.
Yeah.
Outstanding, everybody. Outstanding. Julie, good to see you.
Yes.
Oh, am I muted?
This was awesome, and thank you so much for your guys' time. Yeah, for spending your evenings with us. That was so much information, but so positive. I definitely came out of there going, you know what? We're going to be just fine. And I think that I can say a lot of the students did as well. So that's just super awesome. Thank you.
I think the other thing too, and I wasn't going to say it on the call because, it is what it is, but you know what? I think this would have been different if it weren't an election year.
Yeah.
The way that this whole thing, is handled, regardless of whether you're Republican or Democrat, but the election definitely has played a role in the reopening guidelines and mask and all of that.
I agree.
Which is just unfortunate,
We've been saying that in my household.
They've made it more political than it needs to be.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but I agree, I agree exactly with, what Lynette and Nancy talked about in terms of recovery. I mean, we're seeing the same thing. I think, for us, obviously leisure is still strong and it's still here. If we can just get some even small meetings back, that will certainly help. You know, if they can make some decisions around limited liability for corporations, that'll help business traveler. And then eventually we'll get to that, you know, overseas traveler. But I definitely don't see that overseas traveler coming back until late next year.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. I know one thing, pent up demand. I'm one of them. I'm one of
I
them.
can say I'm
Pent-up
ready to go
demand.
traveling again.
I can't wait to travel again. And I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of people. And the thing of it is though, it's when it's safe. And so when is that going to be that, you know, people feel comfortable enough and that it is safe enough and to do that again. So you bring up a lot of great points, but I think there's going to be pent up demand.
Yeah, Hawaii just reopened. Hawaii just started advertising because obviously California is a big market for them, and they just started advertising because now they lifted the quarantine. You no longer have to quarantine when you get there. They do require you to have a positive COVID test before you come, and you have to actually show that before you get on the flight. But they were telling me that when they opened up, their weekends were already at 90%.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, folks are moving. And Mexico, you know, who's doing well too is Mexico. Like Cabo San Lucas here and Puerto Vallarta, they're doing great. They're doing great.
China's doing well.
I'm over here in Utah, and the hotel I work at, it's like 100%, literally like Thursday through Sunday every weekend, because I think it was Nanci was saying, like the Knoxville, Tennessee, everyone thinks that the fresh air is safe. So everyone, you know, crowds out there. And so we're the mountains of Park City. Everyone's like, there's no COVID there. So we've been doing pretty good, and I'm super grateful for that. But it totally made me think of that when you said that, Nanci. I was like, yep, that's a common thing around here too, out in the West.
I agree with you, America. My hotel that I've been working at, Crystal Springs in Jersey, we've been busy from Thursday to Sunday between weddings, golfing. It's been crazy that I don't even know what day it is at this point.
People are doing it with the mask. They're doing it with the mask.
Do what you got to do.
They must not have any homeless in the hotels around them.
Right.
Oh my God.
America, what hotel? I'm going to Park City in November. What hotel are you at?
I work at Hotel Park City. The Marriott Autograph.
Yeah. Oh, okay. My sister did a Porsche event out in Park City in September. I can't remember what property. It was a Marriott property that they stayed in. So they did kind of a drive experience. And, you know, of course, they did all the cars and everything, but it was meant for folks whose lease was coming up. And so they rented out the hotel